As the news crews finished setting up their equipment, the lead reporter approached Captain Williams. Jennifer Martinez from Channel 7 News had covered numerous police misconduct stories and recognized the significance of what was unfolding. Captain Williams, can you comment on the detention of Dr. Rodriguez's daughter? Martinez asked, thrusting a microphone toward him. Captain Williams looked directly into the camera. This evening, an officer made serious errors in judgment that led to the wrongful detention of an innocent teenager. The officer has been suspended immediately, and we will be conducting a thorough investigation into this incident. Meanwhile, the videos recorded by bystanders were already being uploaded to social media. The footage clearly showed Officer Webb detaining Jasmine without cause, ignoring her attempts to provide documentation and making dismissive comments. Within an hour, the hashtag Justice for Jasmine was trending locally. Webb stood off to the side, realizing that his career was effectively over. The video evidence, combined with his history of problematic arrests, would make it impossible for the department to defend his actions. He had let his prejudices guide his decisions, and now he would face the consequences. Dr. Rodriguez held her daughter close as they spoke with reporters. "My daughter is an honor student who works part-time to help our family," she explained. She was coming home from her job at the coffee shop and was planning to buy groceries for dinner. Instead, she was humiliated and treated like a criminal for driving the car we work so hard to afford. Jasmine, having composed herself somewhat, also spoke to the cameras. "I kept trying to show him my registration and insurance, but Officer Webb wouldn't listen. He had already decided I was guilty of something just by looking at me." Dr. Williams, standing beside them, added her perspective. "This family has contributed tremendously to our community. Dr. Rodriguez saves children's lives every day at our hospital, and Jasmine volunteers at our youth mentorship programs. To see them treated this way is heartbreaking." The story was picked up by national news outlets within hours. The clear video evidence, combined with the family's sterling reputation in the community, made it a compelling case of racial profiling and police misconduct. At police headquarters, internal affairs investigators were already reviewing Webb's personnel file. They found a pattern of complaints from minority citizens, dismissed charges due to lack of evidence, and reports from colleagues questioning his methods. Officer Chen's incident report detailed her concerns about Webb's approach and his refusal to properly verify Jasmine's documentation. Chief of Police Robert Anderson called an emergency press conference the next morning. "The actions of Officer Webb do not represent the values of our department or the community we serve," he announced. "We have zero tolerance for racial profiling or the abuse of police powers." Webb's attorney, Mark Stevens, tried to control the damage. "My client believes he was following proper procedure in investigating what appeared to be suspicious circumstances," Stevens told reporters, but the video evidence contradicted any claim of proper procedure. Legal experts appearing on news shows pointed out that Webb had no reasonable suspicion to justify the detention, had ignored the suspect's attempts to provide documentation, and had made statements clearly indicating racial bias. The community response was swift and powerful. Dr. Rodriguez's colleagues at Children's Hospital organized a support rally. The coffee shop where Jasmine worked put up signs showing their support for their employee. Local business leaders, many of whom knew the Rodriguez family personally, spoke out against the treatment they had received. 3 days after the incident, Webb received notification that he was being terminated from the police department. The letter, signed by Chief Anderson, cited conduct unbecoming of an officer, racial profiling, abuse of police powers, and actions that brought disrepute to the department. The police union initially announced they would fight the termination, but after reviewing the video evidence and Webb's history, they quietly withdrew their support. Union President Tom Bradley issued a statement. "While we believe in due process for all officers, we cannot defend actions that clearly violate our oath to serve and protect all citizens equally." Webb's problems extended beyond just losing his job. The district attorney announced that his office would review all of Webb's previous arrests to determine if other citizens had been wrongfully detained or charged. Several cases were already being dismissed. and civil rights attorneys were reaching out to families who might have been affected. Dr. Rodriguez and Jasmine, after consulting with their attorney, decided to file a federal civil rights lawsuit against both Webb and the city. Their lawyer, civil rights specialist Amanda Foster, explained their decision. This isn't just about compensation for what this family suffered. It's about ensuring that no other family has to go through this experience. The lawsuit alleged that Webb's actions violated Jasmine's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure, as well as her 14th Amendment rights to equal protection under the law. The video evidence made it nearly impossible for the city to defend against the claims. 6 months later, the city settled the lawsuit for $500,000. More importantly, they agreed to implement mandatory bias training for all officers, install body cameras on all patrol units, and establish a civilian review board to investigate complaints of police misconduct. Webb, meanwhile, found himself essentially unemployable in law enforcement. No police department would hire an officer who had been terminated for racial profiling. His attempts to find work in private security were hampered by the notoriety of his case. The video of him detaining Jasmine had been viewed millions of times online, making him recognizable wherever he went. His wife, Sarah, filed for divorce 6 months after his termination. "I can't be married to someone who treats people the way you treated that girl," she told him. "Our kids are asking their friends why Daddy is on the news, and I don't know what to tell them." Webb lost his house due to inability to pay the mortgage. His pension was forfeited due to his termination for cause, and he was forced to move in with his elderly parents. The man who had once felt powerful wielding his badge and authority found himself working night shifts at a warehouse, earning minimum wage. For Jasmine and her family, the aftermath brought both challenges and opportunities. The trauma of being wrongfully detained stayed with Jasmine for months. She started seeing a counselor to work through the anxiety and anger she felt about the incident, but positive changes also emerged from the difficult experience. Jasmine became an advocate for police reform, speaking at high schools and community events about civil rights and the importance of standing up against injustice. Her poise and articulation during television interviews impressed many viewers. Several universities, having learned about her academic achievements and her grace under pressure, reached out with scholarship offers. Jasmine ultimately accepted a full scholarship to study pre-law at Northwestern University, with the goal of becoming a civil rights attorney. Dr. Rodriguez used her newfound platform to advocate for police accountability and community healing. She worked with the police department to develop better training protocols and helped establish a fund to provide legal assistance to families affected by police misconduct. The coffee shop where Jasmine had worked, Java Junction, became something of a local landmark after the incident. The owner, recognizing the positive attention the case had brought to issues of justice, established the Jasmine Rodriguez Scholarship for students pursuing careers in law or social justice. Officer Chun, who had tried to de-escalate the situation, was promoted to detective and became a training instructor for new officers on proper procedures and bias recognition. She often used the Webb incident as a teaching example of how not to handle citizen interactions. Captain Williams implemented sweeping changes to the department's policies and procedures. The incident had been a wake-up call about problems that had been overlooked for too long. He established regular community forums where citizens could voice concerns about police practices and created mentorship programs between officers and youth from diverse backgrounds. 2 years after the incident, Jasmine was thriving in college and had started a nonprofit organization called Know Your Rights, which educated young people about their legal protections during police encounters. She still drove the BMW that had been the center of the controversy, but now it carried special license plates reading, "Justice Won, a gift from her mother." Dr. Rodriguez continued her medical practice, but also served on the civilian review board that had been established as part of the settlement. Her experience with police misconduct gave her unique insight into how to balance police accountability with public safety needs. Webb, on the other hand, remained largely ostracized from the community. His attempts to rebuild his life were consistently hampered by his notoriety. Even his former colleagues at the police department avoided associating with him. Knowing that his case had become a symbol of everything wrong with policing, his parents, while supportive, often expressed disappointment in how he had handled the situation. "You ruined a good family's evening because of your prejudices," his father told him during one difficult conversation. "That girl?" Officer Chun pulled out her radio and called dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Unit 301. I need you to run a VIN check on a BMW. License plate number 7X49M2. Also need to verify registration under the name Elena Rodriguez." While they waited for the information, Jasmine remained against the car, her hands still visible as instructed. She could hear murmured conversations from the growing crowd of onlookers. Some had their phones out, and she realized that whatever was happening was likely being recorded. "Officer Chun," Jasmine said quietly, "my mother should be getting off her shift at the hospital soon. She's probably worried because I usually text her when I get off work. Could someone please contact her?" Webb scoffed. "Nice try. Probably want to warn your accomplices." June shot Webb a sharp look. "That's enough," she said firmly. "Miss Rodriguez will have this sorted out shortly." The radio crackled to life. "Unit 301, the VEN comes back clean. Registered to Dr. Elena Rodriguez at 2847 Oakwood Drive. No reports of theft, no liens, registration is current." Chun looked at Webb meaningfully. "The car checks out, Marcus." But Webb wasn't ready to back down. His pride was now involved, and admitting he had been wrong from the beginning would mean acknowledging that he had wrongfully detained an innocent teenager. Could still be her mother's car that she took without permission. He insisted. Jasmine's frustration finally bubbled over. "This is ridiculous. I have insurance cards, I have the spare key, I know the PIN for the alarm system. How would I know all of that if I stole the car?" As if summoned by some cosmic timing, Jasmine's phone began buzzing in her pocket. "That's probably my mom," she said. "She worries when I don't check in." Chun looked at Webb, then back at Jasmine. "What's your mother's name again?" "Dr. Elena Rodriguez. She's a pediatrician at Children's Hospital." Chun made a decision. "I'm going to let you answer that call," she said. "But keep it on speaker so we can hear." Jasmine carefully reached for her phone, grateful for Chun's reasonableness. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice still shaky from the stress. "Mia, where are you?" "You usually text me when you finish work," came a worried voice through the phone speaker. The accent was slight but noticeable, and the concern was genuine. "Mom, Jasmine paused, unsure how to explain the situation. "I'm at the Maple Shopping Center, but there's been a misunderstanding. The police think I stole our car." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through, sharper and more concerned. "What do you mean they think you stole our car? Put one of the officers on the phone, please." Chun stepped forward. "Dr. Rodriguez? This is Officer Sarah Chun with the Metro Police. Your daughter is safe, but we're verifying ownership of the BMW she was driving." "Officer Chun, that car belongs to my daughter and me. We bought it together last year from Premier BMW downtown. I can provide you with all the purchase documentation, financing information, insurance records, whatever you need. Why would you think she stole it?" Webb, overhearing the conversation, finally spoke up. "Ma'am, we have to investigate when we see suspicious circumstances." "Suspicious circumstances?" Dr. Rodriguez's voice grew colder. "What exactly was suspicious about my daughter driving our car?" The question hung in the air, and Webb realized he couldn't answer it without revealing his racial bias. Chun was watching him carefully, and the growing crowd was listening to every word through the speakerphone. Just then, Chun's radio crackled again. "Unit 301, dispatch. We show that BMW was purchased from Premier BMW on March 15th of last year. Financing was through First National Bank, completely paid off 6 months ago. Also, Dr. Elena Rodriguez is listed as a community volunteer with our department's youth outreach program." Chun closed her eyes briefly, realizing the full scope of what had happened. They had detained the daughter of someone who actually volunteered with their police department. Dr. Rodriguez, I sincerely apologize for this situation. We're going to resolve this immediately. Webb was growing more agitated. We can't just take everyone's word for everything. He'd protested. At that moment, a familiar voice called out from across the parking lot. Elena? Jasmine? What's going on here? Everyone turned to see Dr. Patricia Williams. Walking quickly toward them, Dr. Williams was a respected surgeon and also happened to be married to Captain David Williams, the head of the Metro Police Department's Community Relations Division. Patricia! Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the phone. Thank goodness. Jasmine, is that Dr. Williams? Yes, Mom, Jasmine said, relief evident in her voice. Dr. Williams approached the scene with authority. Officers, I'm Dr. Patricia Williams. Elena Rodriguez is a colleague of mine at the hospital, and Jasmine is like family. What exactly is happening here? Chun quickly explained the situation while Webb stood by. Looking increasingly uncomfortable, Dr. Williams listened with growing disbelief and anger. Let me understand this correctly, Dr. Williams said, her voice measured but clearly angry. You detained this young woman for driving her own car? A car that's properly registered, insured, and that she has legitimate access to? We were just doing our job, Webb said defensively. Your job is to serve and protect, not to harass teenagers based on assumptions, Dr. Williams replied sharply. I know this family personally. Elena Rodriguez is one of the finest doctors I've ever worked with. And Jasmine is an honor student who works part-time to help with family expenses. The crowd around them had grown larger, and several people were openly recording the interaction. Someone had also called the local news station. Recognizing Dr. Williams and realizing this was becoming a significant story, Dr. Williams pulled out her own phone. David, it's Patricia. I need you to get down to the Maple Shopping Center immediately. We have a situation involving one of our officers and the daughter of Dr. Elena Rodriguez, even from several feet away. They could hear Captain Williams's response through the phone. What kind of situation? The kind that's about to be all over the news, Dr. Williams replied grimly. Webb finally began to realize the magnitude of his mistake. Not only had he wrongfully detained an innocent teenager, but he had done so to someone connected to the medical community and the police department's own outreach programs. Chun took charge of the situation. Miss Rodriguez, I want to personally apologize for what you've experienced tonight. You are free to go, and there will be no charges or reports filed. Wait a minute, Webb interjected. We can't just— Yes, we can, Chun cut him off firmly. And we will. Jasmine finally stepped away from the car. Her legs shaky from the adrenaline and stress, Dr. Williams immediately moved to her side, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. Sweetheart, are you okay? Dr. Williams asked gently. I think so, Jasmine replied, though her hands were still trembling. I just don't understand why this happened. I was just getting groceries. Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the phone again. Mia, I'm leaving the hospital now, Dr. Williams. Please stay with her until I get there. Of course, Dr. Williams replied. And Elena, we need to discuss filing a formal complaint about this incident. The mention of a formal complaint made Webb's stomach drop. He knew that his history of questionable arrests and complaints about his methods would not help his case. But the situation was about to get much worse for him. Captain Williams arrived on scene within 10 minutes, his face grim as he surveyed the situation. The crowd had grown even larger, and he could see local news vans pulling into the parking lot. What do we have here? Captain Williams asked. Though his tone suggested he already knew it wasn't good, Chun quickly briefed him on the events while Webb stood silently by, knowing that anything he said at this point would likely make things worse. Officer Webb, Captain Williams said sternly, I want you to explain to me exactly what reasonable suspicion you had to detain Miss Rodriguez. Webb stammered. Well, the car seemed expensive for someone her age. That's not reasonable suspicion, that's profiling, Captain Williams replied sharply. What else? I just thought. It seems suspicious, double quote. What seems suspicious? A teenager driving a car that belongs to her family? A car that's properly registered and insured? Captain Williams's voice was rising slightly. The reality of the situation was becoming clear to everyone present. Webb had no legitimate reason for the detention other than his own biases and assumptions. Dr. Rodriguez arrived just as the news crews were setting up their cameras. She rushed to Jasmine, embracing her daughter tightly while Dr. Williams explained what had transpired. "This is unacceptable," Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to making life-and-death decisions. "My daughter was humiliated and traumatized for absolutely no reason." Captain Williams nodded gravely. "Dr. Rodriguez, I want to assure you that this incident will be thoroughly investigated. Officer Webb will be suspended pending a full review." The word suspended hit Webb like a physical blow. His career, his reputation, his livelihood, everything was crumbling because of his poor judgment and biased assumptions, but the consequences fall. Jasmine Rodriguez stepped out of the gleaming silver BMW, adjusting her backpack as she locked the car with the key fob. The 17-year-old had just finished her shift at the local coffee shop and was looking forward to getting home to study for her AP chemistry exam. The parking lot of the small shopping center was nearly empty, with only a few scattered vehicles under the flickering streetlights. She had worked double shifts all summer to help her mother with car payments on the BMW. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was a pediatrician who had immigrated from Mexico 15 years ago. They had saved together for 2 years to afford this car, and it represented everything they had worked for. Jasmine felt proud every time she drove it, knowing the sacrifices that had made it possible. As she walked toward the grocery store to pick up ingredients for dinner, Jasmine noticed a police cruiser pulling into the lot. She thought nothing of it initially. Officer Marcus Webb had been patrolling this area for 3 years and had developed what he considered a keen eye for suspicious activity. When he saw the young black woman walking away from the expensive car, his assumptions kicked in immediately. Webb pulled his cruiser up behind the BMW and got out, his hand instinctively moving toward his radio. At 34 years old, he had been with the force for 8 years and had built a reputation among his colleagues for making arrests. What many didn't know was that most of his arrests were later dismissed due to lack of evidence or improper procedure. "Excuse me, miss," Webb called out, his voice carrying across the parking lot with an authoritative tone that made Jasmine's stomach drop. Jasmine turned around, her heart immediately beginning to race. She had been taught by her mother to always be respectful with police officers, but she also knew from friends and family that encounters like this could escalate quickly. She walked back toward the officer, keeping her hands visible and her movements slow and deliberate. "Yes, officer? Is there a problem?" Jasmine asked, her voice steady despite the anxiety building in her chest. Webb looked her up and down, taking in her work uniform from the coffee shop and her young appearance. "Is this your vehicle?" he asked, pointing toward the BM. "Yes, sir, it is," Jasmine replied, reaching slowly into her pocket for her keys. "I can show you my registration and insurance if you need to see it." The officer's expression hardened. "Step away from the vehicle and put your hands where I can see them," he commanded, his tone becoming more aggressive. Jasmine's confusion was evident on her face. "I don't understand, officer. What did I do wrong? This is my car. I have all the paperwork." Webb had already made up his mind about what he was seeing. In his view, a young black woman couldn't possibly afford such an expensive car legitimately. He had seen enough crime dramas and had formed opinions that he believed made him good at his job. "I said step away from the vehicle. I need to verify that this car isn't stolen," Webb said, moving closer to Jasmine with his hand now resting on his service weapon. The word stolen hit Jasmine like a physical blow. She realized that, despite having done nothing wrong, she was being profiled based solely on her appearance and age. Her mother had warned her about situations like this, but experiencing it firsthand felt surreal and terrifying. "Officer, please, I can prove this is my car," Jasmine said, her voice beginning to shake slightly. "My registration is in the glove compartment, and I have the insurance card on my phone app. My mother and I bought this car together." Webb wasn't interested in hearing explanations. "Turn around and place your hands on the vehicle," he ordered. "I'm detaining you while I investigate a possible vehicle theft." Jasmine felt tears beginning to form in her eyes, but she complied with the officer's demands. She placed her hands on the warm hood of her BMW, the metal surface feeling cold against her palms despite the evening heat. Other shoppers in the area had begun to notice the commotion, some stopping to watch from a distance. As Webb began to pat her down, Jasmine spoke quietly. "Officer, my mother is Dr. Elena Rodriguez at Children's Hospital. This car is registered under our family name. If you would just let me show you the registration, this could all be cleared up in seconds." "Save the stories," Webb replied dismissively. "I've heard every excuse in the book. Young woman like you driving a car worth more than most people make in a year? I don't think so." The humiliation Jasmine felt was overwhelming. She thought about her mother, who had worked night shifts as a nurse while going to medical school. She thought about the years of saving money, buying secondhand clothes, and eating home-cooked meals instead of restaurant food. All of that sacrifice had led to this moment where she was being treated like a criminal for driving the car they had earned together. Webb called for backup, while keeping Jasmine detained against her vehicle. "Unit 247 requesting backup for possible vehicle theft investigation at Maple Shopping Center," he radioed, feeling confident that he was about to make another arrest within minutes. A second police cruiser arrived, and Officer Sarah Chun stepped out. Chun was known in the department for her thorough approach and attention to detail. She had been Webb's partner before but had requested a different assignment due to concerns about his methods. "What do we have here, Webb?" Chun asked, approaching the scene with a more measured demeanor. "Suspected vehicle theft," Webb replied. "Young woman claims this BMW belongs to her, but you know how that goes." Chun looked at Jasmine, who was still positioned against the car with tears now visible on her cheeks. Something about the situation didn't sit right with her. The young woman appeared genuinely distressed rather than nervous in the way someone might be if they had actually stolen a vehicle. "Have you checked her identification and registration yet?" Chun asked Webb. "I was about to search for identification," Webb replied. "Wanted to make sure she wasn't armed first." Chun frowned. "Has she been aggressive or threatening in any way?" "No, but you never know with these situations," Webb said, his prejudices becoming more apparent with each statement. Jasmine finally spoke up, her voice stronger now despite her fear. "Officer, I have my driver's license, registration, and insurance." "I've been trying to show Officer Webb my documentation, but he won't let me. I work at Java Junction Coffee Shop, and I was just getting groceries before going home. This is my car, and I can prove it." Chun looked at Webb with growing concern. "Let's see her documentation," she said firmly. Webb reluctantly stepped back as Chun approached Jasmine. "What's your name, miss?" Chun asked gently. "Jasmine Rodriguez," she replied, grateful for the change in tone. "Okay, Jasmine. I'm Officer Chung. Can you slowly reach for your identification and show it to me?" Jasmine carefully retrieved her driver's license from her wallet and handed it to Officer Chun. Chun examined it carefully, noting that the address matched the registration information she could see through the car window. "The registration is in the glove compartment," Jasmine said, "and I have the insurance information on my phone app." Chun looked at the license again, then back at Jasmine. Everything about the young woman's demeanor and documentation suggested she was telling the truth. "Webb, I think we should verify this information before proceeding." But Webb was committed to his initial assessment. "Documentation can be forged," he said. "I think we should bring her in for questioning and have the vehicle impounded while we investigate." The suggestion sent a new wave of panic through Jasmine. Being arrested would mean missing school, potentially losing her job, and, worst of all, disappointing her mother who had worked so hard to provide opportunities for her. "Please," Jasmine said, turning toward Officer Chun, "just call the number on the registration. My mother will verify everything. Or check the VIN number against the registration." I'm telling the truth. Chun was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Webb's approach. She had seen him make questionable decisions before, but this situation seemed particularly problematic. The young woman appeared to be a normal teenager with proper documentation for the vehicle. Meanwhile, Webb was growing more frustrated with what he perceived as Chain's interference. He had already committed to the idea that he had caught a car thief, and admitting he was wrong would be embarrassing in front of other officers who might hear about the incident. As the tension in the parking lot continued to build, none of them realized that their entire interaction was being recorded by multiple sources. A bystander had begun filming with their phone after noticing the commotion. Additionally, the shopping center security cameras had captured the entire encounter from multiple angles. The situation was about to take a turn that would change all their lives, but especially Officer Webb's career and reputation. What started as a routine patrol was becoming something much larger, with consequences that none of them could have anticipated. Sean made a decision that would prove to be crucial. Webb, I'm going to verify this information properly. If Miss Rodriguez is telling the truth, we need to resolve this quickly and appropriately. Webb's response would determine whether the situation could be resolved peacefully or whether it would escalate into something that would attract much more attention than a simple parking lot detention. The next few minutes would prove to be among the most important of his career, though not in the way he expected.